Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Focus on Liberia, Roundtable Africa. I am the West African correspondent, Amara. Welcome to a broadcast of current events on the continent. Focus on Liberia uses this particular opportunity to give you regular updates on news that happens on the continent. We all know Focus on Liberia is a very active social media and television or online television program. We do this on a daily basis or 3 days a week to ensure that most of the major events that actually happen on the continent, we make people to have knowledge about them. In Africa, it's a dynamic continent. Africa is a very dynamic continent. We have been seeing a lot of events that normally take place on the continent. And unfortunately, because of certain developments, it has been affecting the way our continent moves from one stage to another. Focus on Liberia, go into most of those major events. If you watch at Africa, dynamism is full of controversy. And to just give you a holistic view about the continent, a lot of development are taking place. Some political changes are happening. Then we are also having things that are not auguring down well. If you watch from the length and breadth of Africa, things are happening that we do not actually think those things should have been or should be in existence into Africa. We are seeing racial attack in places like Tunisia. West Africa, people from sub-Saharan country have been attacked on a daily basis, which nobody thought that those things like that actually would have been happening. Then look at what is about to undertake into South Africa. For far too long, the ANC, that is the African National Congress, have been ruling South Africa since the early 1990s. So I think the ANC has now, the people of South Africa have decided now to form what they call a coalition for 2024 election to unseat the ruling party, ANC. And ANC is actually been seen as the party of South Africa, especially those of various race. They managed to do away with the apartheid regime. Most South Africans are still crying that the ANC did not do what they were elected for. And since then, the ANC have been involved into a series of corrupt practices. I think the most immaculate leader of South Africa was Nelson Mandela. But after Nelson Mandela handed over power peacefully just for a time of leadership, which everybody think and feel that was actually good. And most people are even with the grievances that justice cannot be done without you cannot have reconciliation without justice being meted out. But in the name of reconciliation, he stopped everything. And today we have seen a society since after he left. Of course, Thabo Mbeki took over. He could not complete the time. He was recalled. We saw the like of Jacob Zuma. He went into power. Jacob Zuma did not complete the time of office. He was recalled. We saw Cyril Ramaphosa. He came into power. And since accusation and counter-accusation, maybe Cyril Ramaphosa, because of his oratorship, his longevity into politics. In fact, if they are not because of his strong stance into South African political system. The like of Jacob Zuma wanted for his wife, Iguzana Dlamini Zuma, would have actually succeeded him. But I think he was virtually told that politics in South Africa is not transmitted through sexual intercourse. And unfortunately, Iguzana Dlamini Zuma, who once acted as Africa Union chairperson, did not actually succeed Jacob Zuma. Now look at what is happening in the places like Uganda. We are seeing a new development of terrorism. Of course, South Sudan is trying. South Sudan may definitely conduct an election next year, but Northern Sudan is having problems. People are being raped, killed, and women are being exposed to tortured. All the normal life activity into South Sudan has definitely come to a standstill. But Rwanda is welcoming migrants or refugees from overseas, which to me is actually not a prudent move, because we know most of those people are even people from North Africa. Some are coming from the Middle East. Both economic and political refugees are actually coming into Rwanda. That could give prospect for terrorism. People of various types may definitely invade Rwanda, and does Rwanda have that particular thing? Of course, Paul Kagame with the philosophy encouraging women to politics, had the backing of America, had the backing of the West. But I think people who are into East Africa should definitely scrutinize the activities of that particular country to ensure that people with the endangered mentality should not actually go by there, because there are certain people that are very unscrupulous, they are unpredictable, they can almost do everything. Everybody is just coming over there. Of course, since look at Denis Ingresu into Congo, since in the late 1980s he has been there, he does not have the even intention to leave. You look at Equatorial Guinea, a man has been to power, Theodore Biandere since 1976, Paul Biya into Cameroon since 1982, and Cameroon is facing series of problems. Burkina Faso, terrorism, coup d'etat, Guinea very unstable, with Mamadi taking over from Lansana, Alpha Conde after the death of Alpha Lansana Conte. We saw Dadis Camara who came into power. Everybody thought that when Dadis Camara was removed, elections were being conducted. We saw Alpha Conde who came into power. Everybody thought that he could be the man who would sanitize everything. You see Senegal, of course, Makassa. His presidential term is expired. He wants to still continue to lead the country, maybe by manipulating. He manipulated the constitution, conducted a referendum that removed the 7-year term of office. He places it now into 5-year term. He wants to use that new constitution and come into power. And Usman Sanko, who is the current opposition leader and the mayor of one of the cities of South Africa, is being under serious pressure. When you watch at those things, although Cameroon is having this Anglophone war, Nigeria cannot be spoken of in any good manners. An elected old man is now leading the country. Terrorism or jihadist movement is definitely on the rise. And we are seeing banditry and also kidnapping for is maybe adequate care is not taken, and maybe a sense of reasonability need to be justified. And all of this situation need to be amicably handled. Let's go firstly into our stories. We first start our stories today because we have a lot of stories, but let's first start in Cameroon. In Cameroon, the Afon of Akum visited the UK in an attempt to raise funding. You know, Cameroon, since over the past 6 years, the Anglophone and the Francophone Cameroonians have been fighting for cessation. And we all know what happened if you are reading about the UN Charter, the trusteeship nation, when they saw certain areas gain independence, if they know that a particular island does not have, or a particular place does not have the ability to govern itself, what they normally do, they take those particular places, they handed them over to a powerful country which will oversee them. It could be similar thing like Senegambia, when Gambia was under Senegal. That was how Cameroon, part of the Anglophone Cameroon, that area suffers from British colonization, also suffered from German colonization. So when the British were finally leaving, first they were conquered by the Germans, the British came and conquered the place. And when Cameroon finally became independent, Anglophone Cameroon was not big and strong enough to govern itself. They took that particular area and gave it to the Francophone Cameroon. But now they want independence. They are not being governed by the English culture. They are not being judged so, and they are under serious oppression. Series of crimes have been committed over there. Women have been raped. So the king is actually in London to what? To raise funds. So the event that is actually going, visiting certain places, and is calling upon Cameroonians and black and sympathizers across the world to ensure that at least they support the country or the two regions, those Anglophone speaking Cameroonians, for them to have enough money to send those children who are definitely living in deplorable conditions. Normal life attitudes definitely not going on. At the same time, schooling, whatsoever, medication, all of those things are definitely bastardized, if not relegated. So it's calling out upon Cameroonians and philanthropists who are Africans to actually help support the system. And they are saying that whatsoever little collection that will be taken like just like a rain. You have pieces of rain coming down the form an ocean. That is why he is saying. And also he's using that opportunity for the world to actually know what is definitely going on into Cameroon. Because the situation have definitely been abandoned. Maybe it's not being widely watched and considered like what we are happening today, like in the when you are seeing the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, the entire world eyes on it. But unfortunately, things like that are not definitely happening. So it's definitely hoping that this particular our exploration that is doing will not only yield dividend for maybe helping the country to get money, or the region to get money to send some of the children to school. But it should also raise concern to the world, so that they should actually intervene on what is happening into Cameroon. So coming to Democratic Republic of Congo. Sometimes ago, some 27 passengers were being tortured. Some of them were being gang raped. Some of them were actually being released in the vehicle, or in Cameroon, in Kinshasa. Kinshasa is actually the third largest city into Africa, behind Cairo in Egypt, Abuja, or Abuja in Nigeria. Then at the same time, it came third. And of course, those incidences are very common into Kinshasa, that is the Democratic Republic of Congo, where we have Felix Tshisekedi as president, who succeeded Joseph Kabila. And Felix Tshisekedi's father was Etienne Tshisekedi. They have bitter conflict between the two. But when Joseph Kabila was leaving power, he knew the Amanti Farela, who was the opposition that purportedly won the election, if he were to be pronounced the winner of the election, maybe Joseph Kabila would have paid, or been asked to maybe a commission of investigation or inquiry would have been mounted against the person, and most of the corrupt practices would have been exposed, and he could have been asked to pay most of those things. So what they did, he supported the main opposition leader, where they have been bitter enemies. But sometimes you have what permanent interests, not permanent enemies into politics. So there is a gang rape into that particular country. Those 27 people are definitely on trial. Some 4 police are actually involved, and 11 women and other people who did that heinous act. So it's a sad event, and those things normally happen. Maybe it is a mentality like what happened into India and Pakistan, Afghanistan. They are now coming to it into Africa. So we are definitely afraid. Almost everything is just possible on the continent. There are certain things that will tell you that it is only in Africa. It's a sad event. I think our African brothers and sisters the law also need to speak for itself. Sometimes the justice system is imbright. Most of what we are expecting to be happening to the justice system do not actually take place, because solid or sound a precedent in time of the dispensation of justice have never been set on the continent. There are times if you set justice, just like in Sierra Leone, when the war came, after the war ended in 2002, no rebel became an MP. No rebel was given elective opposition. But unlike Liberia, you are seeing impunity existent. You are seeing the culture of injustice existing. You are seeing those who contributed to the downfall of Liberia, to the annihilation, amputation, destruction of life and property, are still deciding the fate of Liberia. So it's like justifying evil and giving those who have done that evil the opportunity to still rule. So anybody can just have that culture to perpetrate that same violence without any fear. They can operate under a sound and peaceful atmosphere, having known what others have done, and they are still enjoying. In Sierra Leone, that was definitely not encouraged. We were never pampered. Those who did the wrong, we are hunted, tried, and at the same time they were persecuted. Those cultures we are not there. I think when we set a judicial, we have a justice system, it should speak for itself. Unfortunately, maybe our justice system only operates in theory. When it comes to the dispensation of justice, it becomes absolutely biased. Our justices become unscrupulous, and they have their own mentality in the dispensation of justice. The big fish are not actually suffering, only the little ones. So it's a very sad event, and that event is taking place into the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we pray and hope that those who involved into the kidnapping, rape, and whatsoever thing should definitely be punished severely for what they did. So let's see. Maputo school impresses in prestigious science contest. A metalline was actually removed from a metalline involved died was removed from a water in Maputo, that is Mozambique, when a school won the contest for African level. They were actually trying to test the ability of science on the continent. We know Africa, our science win in terms of the schooling that we go on there. Maybe the contribution is an infinitesimal one to the world. Not that we do not have the ability, we do not have the knowledge. We have children, we have kids, we have pupils, we have students who are very sound. Unfortunately, the ground is not ideal to anybody to learn pure science here. So I think that Maputo school have won the contest for Africa. The students were able to remove mentally die from water, which actually happen like in that it normally happen when you have an introduction of crude oil into water that will lead to the contamination of water, even destruction of life into that particular water. So they use it through local chemicals and other trees and things that we are around, the produces, and they are able to remove it. So they are actually thanking the UK government or other organization which help into organizing that contest, and it led to the exposure of those kids. They are praying and hoping that such opportunities definitely being extended to other countries, and maybe that will ginger up the culture of learning pure science. Maybe will lead to the establishment of many successes on the continent. That is what they are saying, and we also are hoping that students should have the ability maybe to display what they learn. Let's see into South Africa. Billionaire resolves South Africa's World Cup peer dispute. We all know in Africa, when it comes to football, we actually prioritize, we believe we have our masculine mentality, and we prioritize men football compared to female football. So that is why the female football are now in total disarray. They are actually in total disarray in South Africa. They couldn't have even performed or partake. They couldn't have involved into the World Cup that is slated for this year, and it will take place in some part of November in New Zealand and Australia. The female football walk away because in the last contest, any player that actually participated into the World Cup was guaranteed 30,000 pay rise, and at the same time other bonuses. Unfortunately, the South African government did not fulfill her promises or her promise to the players, and they were now threatening the players to either participate into the World Cup or you risk being evicted from it. And when those players walk away, they were calling other teams or clubs within the country to ensure that they submit names of list or list of players so that they can be selected and participate in the World Cup. So these players also use their influence and ask those teams that we are requesting players from not to submit any list of players, because it could have been sounded as a very great betrayer. So they sound out the billionaire and his wife are not involved to solve the problem of bonuses, and he's also encouraging, if not urging, the government to ensure that they give the pay rise, and maybe female football need to be respected on the continent. That is why the culture of football is not being maintained, protected, and enforced on the continent, because football is full of politics. Football is definitely in a political arena into Africa. We have not been able to win World Cup. We are just fortunate for one of our own, which is Morocco, to go in the semi-final. That was a spectacular display of African talent on the continent, and their activities we are well spotted on, and whatsoever thing they have done have now become indelible. It will never be written off. But we still need an African country that will win the World Cup, particularly when we have an African leader and also a celebrity footballer who won world best player of the year. That is George Oponbuya, the current president of Liberia. How do we manifest that into coming with the World Cup on the continent? We hosted it in 2010 in South Africa, yet we did not go further. It was only Ghana. If we are not for the wicked or treacherous, maybe deliberate or pre-planned wickedness of Luis Suarez, who with that particular game would have taken Ghana to the semi-final. But what it did was a deliberate handball, and all what they could do was to award Ghana a penalty, which of course Asamoah Gyan did not end up scoring. There was a reprisal into his home when he had nothing to do in what Luis Suarez did. And we all know or knew that he was under severe pressure. When we can still qualify their behavioral pattern, because it was like a display of what they felt that they were unsatisfied with. But I think Africa need to jog itself up from those things. There is mojo on the continent, but we have different other things to do it. So let's see. Paul Kagame aims to tackle witchcraft in Rwanda football. Fantastic. Africa will still believe into our own black magic. And it's a culture. There is voodooism, there is witchcraft, we have the ATR, the African traditional religion, and there is spiritualism into anything that Africa does. That is part of our culture. That makes us unique. That makes us different. That makes us spectacularly unique from other countries. But the one that is done with the mentality of destruction, I think it's an act of witchcraft. It's so heinous. It's wicked. The one that is done clandestinely to bring the downfall or something. But unfortunately, Rwanda president have gone on television. It was fully televised on the Rwanda national television program. He cried down coaches who are very lackadaisical and so nonchalant into the delivery of their job. They only depend on witchcraft and voodooism to produce success for them. He has won against the mentality, and since 2004 that Rwanda qualified for the African Nation Cup. Maybe was it hosted in Ghana? In Ghana, I think something like that. It was hosted in Ghana. That was the time I ever started watching maybe African Nation Cup. I'm still sure that it was hosted in Ghana. Since then, nothing like that actually took place. 2004, either in Ghana or Egypt, one of those things. It should be in Egypt. So since 2004, that particular Nation Cup was hosted in Egypt. I think it was also the Egyptian that won the cup. By then, after that, Rwanda has never gone to participate into any African Nation Cup. The president is categorically and publicly saying that witchcraft and voodooism, spiritualism is now part of the Rwanda football. And there is something they call a superstition and faith. Superstition is believing into an already predetermined occurrence. When you say you have a superstition, it is like saying once there is life, there is hope. I agreed. But you cannot have hope, you cannot have a future if you do not work for it. A superstitious person will think that everything happened because they were prearranged. The man who has belief will definitely work to it because that is the faith is hard. The man who has faith will definitely work with it. So faith comes with action. Superstition is a lazy mentality that most Africans will think and feel that if this is what was predetermined for me, then that is how it is happening. No, there is nothing was actually predetermined for your person. But if you work towards it, it will definitely happen. That is why sometimes it sounds useless, uncomfortable, and unwelcome news when you speak about luck, among men who have worked so hard to achieve the status where they are today. If you come and believe in the mentality of luck, they will never take you. It is only out of superstitious belief that Africans think and feel that even whatsoever thing that we are struggling for is evil. Of course, Satan is existing. I understand, based on faith. But that doesn't mean that my own condition or my own status is being preconditioned or predetermined by the mentality of Satan. Whatsoever thing I work for, I will definitely achieve it. If it is only in Africa that you will see, this is a very sad thing. I am in Sierra Leone and I have noticed that. You will see children going to church instead of them going to study very hard. For them to pass their examinations, they will go to church and ask pastor to pray for them so that they can pass their examination. Faith believe in action. If you do not study, you will never pass your exams. Because faith, even God, the Bible says, they draw close to God and he will draw close to you. If I take a common example, if your superstitious mentality will be a solution to your problem, then just declare yourself a Christian and read the Bible not and tell me that you will know the Bible. You will know it not. Only pastor who study the Bible will know the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Those who do not study the Bible, an unbeliever can even contradict them. So Paul Kagame is now saying, Africa, especially Rwanda football, they have witchcraft and voodooism into it. Coaches have become so lackadaisical, so careless, so nonchalant, and so uncaring. They do not have the culture of practicing high. They do not have the culture of winning mentality. Their superstitious and witchcraft of voodooism attitude is now planting the culture of laziness within the team. Instead of them practicing, creating an atmosphere of winning, they are now involved into visiting witch doctors. 4. Luck and they create obstacles for their opponent in a crazy art. I don't know. How can you be a doctor and a witch at the same time? This is the problem. Say witch doctor. How can you be a doctor and a witch at the same time? If you're a doctor, then go ahead. My dear, if you're a journalist, do your job. If you're a coach, do your job. Stop that lazy attitude and thinking that your solutions are preconditioned due to some maybe unclaimed mentality. But that is it. It's Africa, it's our culture, and people believe it. But so everything you say, maybe somebody will say no. Finally, we end in Tunisia. Migrant attack in Tunisia, thrown off balconies. Sad event. When Kai Side took over in 2019, he was actually termed as a political novice. Somebody is new to the political arena, whom everybody thought that Kai Side, since he's a political novice, is going to stabilize the Tunisian political culture and ensure that whatsoever thing that has been lacking before this time definitely come. The life of Abdulaziz Bouteflika, who died in Algeria, was one of the longest serving president in Africa. We saw the life of Hosni Mubarak going. We saw the life of Ali Ben Ali from Tunisia. Fortunately for Tunisia, they are the longest uninterrupted democracy since the Arab uprising in 2011. A kind of phenomenon that was injected by the Obama regime into Africa that led to the destruction of the longest serving leaders into Africa. Maybe it was very fantastic, but I think that wave of democratic process or protest against those African leaders helped a lot because it changed the foundation of autocratic, despotic, authoritarian mentality. But change normally comes with hideous things at times, and also it comes with heavy payment that have actually resulted into the destruction of Africa, especially North Africa. If you were to ask me, maybe we had other means of what? Democratizing our society instead of resorting to violence. But when it was injected, those things. Now migrants in Tunisia are being attacked. The balconies and other things thrown away. When you're a West African, people of color found on the continent, especially in north part of Africa, you are being targeted for whatsoever. It's just like in South Africa. When the South African people or the South African feel aggrieved because of the failure of their government, they attack foreigners, their colleagues, Africans, their brothers. It's the same thing that happens into North Africa, especially in Tunisia, because they have now satisfied their attitude and it is well qualified by their so-called president Kai Side, who has suspended the constitution, sacked the parliament, handicapped the executive, and appointed yes men in his executive and into the judiciary. Only those who listen and tell his story. Although he has on numerous occasions denounced the activities of those attacking people of race into Tunisia, and have called upon the judiciary to ensure that they expedite their trials and they should be prosecuted, nothing has actually been seen and done. At times, actions speak louder than words. Thank you very much. It's been me, Edward Amara, focus on Liberia, West African correspondent, coming to you with the latest development on the continent. Join me back, same place, same time on Friday. Thank you. Good night.